make sure that you're trying, like just do something. Do not sit at home and think one day I'm gonna do this, and like get to the failing, man. Like find joy. You know, my friend pointed to me that scene in, I think it's Fight Club, where the guy's just getting the shit kicked out of him, and he's laughing. And it's like, how is this psycho? You know, you're getting the crap beat out of you, and you're just laughing. That's kind of how you have to be in the world, right? With embarrassment and with, you know, nerves and vulnerability and all that stuff. Like, just enjoy the getting roughed up.
That's really cool.
I was thinking about getting into content, saying like, you know, entrepreneurs are really having a hot moment right now, and he's hopping all over that.
So it's getting into Young and Reckless and be like, okay, let's talk about that. You were surrounded by successful people all the time. Like, do you feel like people give you your due as an entrepreneur and as a founder?
Damn, that's deep.
Yeah.
That's hard.
I don't even know what we're saying.
Oh, Zedron. What's going on, man?
Oh shit, there he is.
You still got a good little.
How you doing? I'm Ken. Nice to meet you. It's a pleasure.
Why don't we? All right, so I don't know about you guys, but what are we thinking, mics or voice? Voice? Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. All right,
Authentic.
All right. So, I mean, I don't know about a lot of the people here in the audience, but you came into my life, per se, when I first started watching Rob and Big.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was your ideal customer, as far as like, I was a little middle school kid who loved to skateboard, and it was like Rob Dyrdrek's Fantasy Factory, Rob and Big. That was me. And I mean, you guys had an extraordinary ride there, and that's when I first knew about you. And I had no idea. I just figured, growing up in LA, that you were just another LA guy. But there was a little bit of a journey before that. Would you mind sharing a little bit of that story?
Yeah, and you know, we can get into any part of it that you prefer, because it's a little all over the place. But essentially, I grew up in a town outside of Akron, Ohio. And for anyone who knows Akron, other than LeBron James, there's not much going on there whatsoever. So I was obsessed with skateboarding. That's all I did. And you know, a lot of people ask me, like, was I influenced by my cousin Rob, who's a pro skateboarder? And I think the answer is like, yes, kind of, but like, me and my brother didn't really know him growing up. He grew up about 4 hours away from us, and he's also 13 years older than I am. So, and he moved to California when he was 16. So we knew he had this like cool pro skateboarder cousin, but we didn't really know what that meant, right? So we got into skateboarding. We were obsessed with it. That's all we did all day, every single day. And really my plan, because of skateboarding, my plan was to move to LA as soon as I graduated high school. So I didn't take my SATs or any of that stuff. There was no question about college. I just wanted to move to LA, be around skateboarding, figure out some better opportunity, and just get involved in some excitement. So I graduated high school. I went to down by Cincinnati in Ohio, which is like 3 hours away, for just a weekend to go to this new skate park that opened. And then I was gonna drive back home and essentially the next week fly to LA and start looking for apartments. And the last day of that trip, I fell skateboarding and hit my head really hard and fractured my skull, was in a coma for 4 days, severe brain bleeding, and I had a blood clot in my brain from the skull fracture. So when I woke up, I didn't know how to read, I didn't know how to use a computer, like all these normal things, just I couldn't do. It was so weird. And I couldn't sleep on my left side for months because I would like throw up because it would make me nauseous, because that's the side that I hit. And so they wouldn't let me leave because of this blood clot, because there can be severe complications. So finally come November, they said, look, you still have the blood clot, but you can leave if you want. You could have like seizures and stuff like that. If that happens, you gotta come home. If not, I guess you're okay. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go for it, right? So that was kind of the backstory. Then I moved out to LA, and that's where I really sort of got in touch with Rob, and we became really close. And then we went on this crazy journey of reality TV stardom for 9 years.
So I mean, what was that like? So you land in LA. How quickly do you link up with Rob, and then how fast until you're drama.
Yeah. So I linked up with him right away, and actually the name Drama came from him because it was my email address was causing drama because I was just listening to too much rap music when I was a kid or something. And I remember I emailed him. I said, "Hey man, I'm going to come out there soon, and anything that I can do, I'll do. Like if you need a maid, if you need a, you know what I mean? Like I'll do anything. I just want to make it in LA." And he just wrote me back and said, "Causing drama? What the hell?" And I was like, "No, I blew my one chance, And so when I got out there, he's like, "Drama, what's up?" And to all of his friends, he's like, "Drama," and I'm like, "All right, cool, I'm Drama." Yeah. And but life for like the first year was pretty normal. We just went skating all the time. This was before TV. He was a pro skateboarder, and we just go skating every day like I did in Ohio. I started working for him as his assistant, and then this idea came up of potentially doing a reality show. It seemed absolutely insane to us at the time, but the long story short of it is it ended up, we shot a pilot, it got picked up, and it just catapulted us into this whole other world, right? Because we didn't expect, the highest level of fame or anything like that was his pro skateboarding fame, which is not the same. And that show became like a hit show on MTV when MTV was more powerful than ever, and it just changed everything. I mean, people recognize you where you go. All of his skateboard sponsors started selling his product like crazy. It changes really quick once that happens.
So what was that like finding yourself in the middle of just reality show stardom?
Yeah, it was insane. That was my college, right? Like, and it's like, I think it was crazy enough already because for those of you who know the show Rob and Big, like Rob and Big Black actually lived together at the time. So I moved out here anyway and started hanging out with them, and it was already crazy because it's like, my cousin Rob is a pro skateboarder, and then this, his 300-pound bodyguard, and they're having fun and barbecuing and kind of living similar to what you saw on Rob and Big. So that already was just crazy. Like living in LA was crazy. It's so much different than, like it would probably be easier for me to get used to living on Mars now than it was from like Akron to LA. And then you throw on top of it the sort of reality TV success, and people are recognizing you, and the opportunities that are coming up, and it just kind of puts everything on steroids a little bit. And it was a super crash course. Like there was no manual for it, there was no playbook, and they had never experienced it. So it's not even like I moved out here and like I had a movie star relative that could teach me how to be a movie star. Like it was new to everyone. So we were all just kind of learning. But me, especially at 19 years old, was really just going for it,
Yeah, so I mean, you went from kind of being the assistant on the show to kind of graduating and then going on and building this incredible brand and being at the place that you are now. Like there obviously had to be, a really ambitious, soul in there.
Oh yeah.
What was success for you at that time, and what was driving you during those times of being, starting off at Rob and Big and saying like, I'm going to go further than this? Or was that even on your plate?
Well, so it's kind of been like a progression. Like the way that I see it is it's been a progression. Like I saved up from selling skate videos that I was making and my graduation money and everything I had. I moved out here with $2,000, and that was success for me at the time, right? Like $2,000, that's you're rich.
Yeah, for real.
So
I could use $2,000.
Exactly. So that was success to me at the time. Then, the next bar of success was if I could just manage to live in a studio apartment with a roommate and work at a skate shop or work in skateboarding. That was success for me at the time. And then, we got involved in the reality stuff. On Rob and Big, I wasn't making really any money. I think in the whole, and not to discount this amount of money, but I think the whole lifespan of Rob and Big, I probably made like $7,500 max, because I was paid like essentially $1,000 for any episode that I appeared in, and I wasn't really in Rob and Big that much. And if there was a quick scene, like they'd make sure they saved $1,000 and took me out. But so it wasn't like I was rich by any means or even close. I had this very low level of weird fame, but nothing that I could leverage. But the biggest thing for me was I didn't want to be a reality TV star. I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want my income to sort of coincide with how famous I was. That seemed like a really whack pursuit. It just wasn't for me. And there's a lot of people who do it. The Kardashians have built an entire billion-dollar thing off of it, and it's great for them. For me, it just wasn't my calling or my whatever. So my wheels were instantly turning on how I could start a business or do anything to have a legitimate, cool business in LA where I was making some good income and having some fun. And really, my first thing was music production. I started making beats. And I thought for sure I was going to be Scott Storch. And the funny thing now is if you watch old episodes of Rob and Big, I was doing a lot of the background music. So sometimes if for some reason it ever comes on a rerun, you'll hear some really awful like ringtone sounding beats in the transition. And that was me, right? That was drama beats. And so that was my first pursuit. And I made some progress. Did some records with like Yellow Wolf and Kelly Rowland and some mid-level success. But that didn't work out. I tried a microwave burrito company. That I thought for sure I was going to sell to like 7-Eleven and like I'm going to be rich. And that clearly didn't work. And Young and Reckless was the thing that really worked, really connected, and really took off. But that's what it came from. It came from when the second time around was Fantasy Factory, right? And for me, Big Black had moved to Texas, who was Rob's co-star, to raise his daughter. And so I thought like, well, now I'm kind of the second in line. So now maybe I'll be a big enough part of this show that I could actually use it to launch a brand. And then my instant goal is how do I make this business not rely on me or this show so that I can go on to just have a good life in LA where I don't have to chase and be on like weird MTV reunion shows for my whole life, or do club appearances.
So I really want to dig into all of that, but I want to talk a little bit about music.
Yep.
It seems to me that music has kind of played a pretty big role in your life.
Yeah.
What role does it play today, and like why were you pursuing music?
Yeah, so I'll give you the whole thing. Like when I grew up, my dad was a drummer. So before my brother and I were born, my brother's 4 years older than me, but my dad toured the world in a band, and it was a small up-and-coming band, but it was a band, and he was a drummer. So there was always drums in my house my whole life. And so I just would always play them and whatever. And then, as I grew older, I thought maybe I could pursue something in music. And I joined the high school marching band, and that was not the thing. And, I tried to start bands with my friends, and that was not the thing either. And so I just kind of put it on the back burner and never thought about it. And then when I moved to LA, I made some new friends, and I realized that you could make beats or essentially make the beginning of a song just on a keyboard from Guitar Center. Like I thought you needed like $1 million studio. You don't know that stuff in Ohio pre-social media. And so I just thought it was really cool. It was a way to use all the little skills that I had picked up. I started making beats. I made the beats for the show for years. I built a little production company. We started working with artists, and it was good. Like we were starting to have some success, but the cost of being in the studio, having the team to deal with it, and the time to deal with chasing down checks from artists, very small checks, to try to get paid for beats is not a fun game if you're not really truly ready to die for it, passionate about it. So when Young and Reckless started having some early signs of success, that was the first thing that I dished on. As far as what role it plays in my life now, we work with a lot of artists for Young and Reckless. I love music. I've been very influenced by music my whole life. I love the process of watching artists develop and what works and what doesn't. It's almost like building a brand, right? Like building an artist is like building a brand, and it's a lot of the same strategies and goals and joys of seeing things succeed. So we work with a lot of artists all the way. I mean, we did a big project with Meek Mill before his first album ever, and Machine Gun Kelly and 21 Savage and all these different people. And my goal, Post Malone, my real goal for my company and for what I do is to come in when I see something new that I think is going to be the next big thing, help out with my brand, help shoot videos, help do whatever I can do, and hopefully watch a star be made. I don't participate in any of that upside, unfortunately, but then, it kind of really fits into the belief system of what Young and Reckless is and what we support. And I really enjoy it. My ultimate goal one day, I'll just tell you, is to start a record label.
Really?
Because I would love to, for me, I help kind of in the development, and then I hopefully watch, you watch Post Malone go become literally the biggest star right now.
Seriously.
And you don't get to keep playing the game. You kind of have to just be like, oh, that's cool. And I'd love to really develop artists, use all of my platforms and channels and all that stuff to help to help blow it up and then really get to enjoy the whole ride.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Well, hopefully our next meetup, I can tell you how to start a record label.
So, I mean, touching a little bit on Young and Reckless, I remember hearing in an interview that a lot of people in the reality show space would like spin off and make merch. Mm-hmm. And I think like we see a ton of people now, like YouTube seems to be kind of that reality show space. Yep. And a ton of brands are, or a ton of influencers are putting out a ton of merch. Yep. But you decided to build a brand that was not, contingent on you being a star. Yep. First off, I would love to hear why you took that path. Yep. And then relaying it to today, are there any other people that you see out there that are doing it well or doing it like you think you do?
Yeah, so the reason I did it, I will say first and foremost, I don't want to judge anyone at all. It's what I like, and I think that there's people, making a lot of money and having a lot of success from making merch from their YouTube pages, and they're happy, and that's fine. For me, I more wanted to run a business, create a brand. That was more what was appetizing to me. Yeah. There was nothing exciting about just trying to grow my celebrity and build products that I could like endorse. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That just doesn't, I don't know, it's just not my thing. And so that was very much my goal. When I started Young and Reckless, obviously I used our show and our platform and myself and whatever to launch it, but then my goal was to, as quickly as possible, do double the marketing of any other company that we were competing with, so that you would almost forget, like you would know, I wanted to be, and don't take this lightly because I'm not comparing myself, but like Steve Jobs to Apple. Meaning, you're comfortable because you know the guy running it, but you don't buy an iPhone because you want to look like Steve Jobs. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I wanted that added level of comfort. I wanted people to say, oh, that's the guy Drama from the thing. Yeah. But you buy it because you want to look like Meek Mill, or you like that project we did or whatever. Yeah. That's just was my interest. I think it's a way longer term strategy. I think it's a way that you can build something that you can have truly enjoy and live off of forever. If it's done right. And I always looked up to brands when I was younger, and it's just something really cool. I'll tell you, just because I just talked about it with a friend, and this is probably going to catch you off guard. So YouTube vloggers are the new reality stars. Yeah. So when we were on reality TV, it was sort of like we were looked at like how vloggers are now. It's like, sure, a lot of people like you, but like you're lame, right? Yeah. Like that's, I think a lot of people write off vloggers. Yeah. And the same way they did for us. And then we built, a lot of people from reality TV built businesses, and some people empires and all these different things. And now vlogging is the new thing. So people are selling merch, some people are building brands instead. Yep. I'll tell you a brand that I just think is incredible that probably only the ladies in the audience will truly understand, but is Glossier. Yeah. And the reason why is they are an incredible brand, from messaging to packaging to Instagram to every aspect. And it's called Glossier. It's not called, the founder's name. And it was founded by a blogger essentially. Yeah. And that's incredible to me. Yeah. To be able to have this platform and be kind of famous in that world, and to have the foresight to call it Glossier and find good partners and build this incredible brand that's going to sell for an insane amount of money in the relatively near future, is just so cool to me, man. Yeah. Yeah. And she used her platform to help launch it, but it wasn't all about that. Mm-hmm. And it's an incredibly well done brand.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, I remember hearing that when you launched Young and Reckless, you were kind of looking to position yourself in some of these like PacSuns and stores. And that was not really what was cool in the market. As far as like, you have your Supremes, and they're, it's on a super short release, and you can only buy it at a Supreme store. Yeah. Were you being super strategic about that? Because that obviously ended up paying off really well for you. Yeah. Or was that something you just kind of fell into?
No, so here was my strategy, which now is non-existent, meaning, which is cool. It's an interesting lesson about business, right? You always want to start a business with, as much as you can, figure it out, right? What's your brand stand for? What do you support? What does it mean? But also, where do you fit in the market? What's the story? Why, like one of the things that I think is so hard is a lot of young people come up to me now and say, hey man, I want to start a clothing line. What should I do? And I'm like, man, unless you have a really unique angle, a clothing line is a very difficult thing. Like, what are you going to print t-shirts? Yeah. That's so hard. It's so hard to convince people from scratch that your t-shirt is better than this other t-shirt, right? The point is, my initial strategy then was I wanted to be the streetwear brand. Like, so I grew up in Akron, Ohio. There's nothing, you would go to the mall and you'd get like, you know, DC shoes and I don't know, Billabong, Hurley, right? And you're like, oh yeah, LA lifestyle, right? Yeah. But like, there's no like, you're not walking out of the store with a Hurley shirt being like, I feel like something special, right? You're just not. There's not really that connection. And then I moved to LA and I saw people line up on Fairfax for Diamond and the Hundreds and Supreme, and I'm like, oh my God. And they're selling the same item. They're selling maybe worse quality t-shirts for 5 times the price, and people are lining up. Why? Because people are connecting with this brand. But at that time, that was before e-com really blew up, and you couldn't get it unless you lived in LA, New York, maybe Miami, maybe Chicago, right? So I thought, I want to create a brand that connects with its customers like those brands do, but not be too cool to sell to everyone. I want that kid in Akron, Ohio to walk into a mall and say, screw Hurley, I'm going to buy a Young and Reckless shirt because that makes me feel some sort of way, right? And so that was my strategy, and it was always like, I always joke, like streetwear without the pride, right? Yeah. And I just didn't care. My goal was never to be the coolest guy in the room. My goal was to be for everyone and make the people like where I grew up feel special. And so that's why I did it. And the first place that we went to was PacSun. Now, I'll tell you the reason why I said it's interesting the way it changes is because now with e-commerce, it doesn't matter. The lamest kid in school in Nebraska can walk around with a Supreme shirt on. Yeah. It's just true, right? And that's why Supreme is now this billion-dollar company. Yeah. The same thing with any brand. There's no more of that like controlling access by who you let in your doors. So that's gone. And then also shortly after we started selling to all the malls, Diamond, Crooks and Castles, all the guys that were our competition at the time started selling too. And part of it, I mean, I know those guys. Part of it was because they saw how successful we were. They're like, well, shit, like I can be cool, or like, oh, I can like get that PacSun check, right? And so it opened it up quite a bit, and so that business model kind of fell apart, and you had to just kind of re-strategize what the incentive is. But yeah, it was very much on purpose. We literally, fun story, the way that we tricked, everyone always asks me, where'd you get investors? How much money did you need? Blah, 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 to start the company. We pulled a trick. What we did was, the brand wasn't real. It was simply a box of samples. I made logos, I made the name, I made samples. I trademarked it so that if I wore it on TV and in my social media and all this different stuff, that obviously I wouldn't get just ripped off or sued. And I wore it everywhere. And I shouted it from the mountaintops, and I made it seem like the coolest thing ever. But it was literally a box of 30 shirts. And then finally we were able to tie it into an episode of one of the shows we were doing. And I had a really good relationship with the editors at MTV. And so I went over there, I begged them, and the moment it was done, they gave me the rough cut DVD of that episode. And it wasn't going to air for like 3 or 4 months. So we drove that down to PacSun and we said, look, this is about to be the next biggest thing in the world. Like we're going to scream it on every episode. If you want me to say PacSun in the next episode, you want blah, blah, blah. You take this, we'll give it to you exclusively for 6 months, but you have to buy it for all doors. That's the trade-off. And you have to have it in stores, because once again, before e-com, you have to have it in stores the day after this episode airs. So that when all these kids naturally go to the mall the next day, there's the brand they just saw on TV. And they did it, because for them there's no downside, right? If nothing else, this guy on a reality show is screaming PacSun, and then the brand flops, and like whatever, you're still shopping at PacSun. And so they took it, and that was one of the biggest, I mean, we were instantly profitable. And don't get me wrong, we've had a lot of hard times, and we've had some years where we weren't profitable and a lot of struggles, but to launch, we had that little trick, and we never needed investors or things like that.
Do you think that Young and Reckless would exist without Fantasy Factory?
So that's a question I get a lot. I think, because also a lot of people ask me, like, what would you be doing if it wasn't for that? This is my honest answer is, it's hard for me to say. It's hard for me to say if I would have started Young and Reckless. If I wasn't, because Young and Reckless was very much one of the ideas that I had. Like, I never would have started a microwave burrito company if it wasn't for being on TV, because my reason for that was a lot of our fans, or a lot of our viewers, are like you were growing up. I'm guessing you might have ate 1 or 2 microwave burritos in your childhood. So perfect, right? Like, I can market to you, and I can, all these college kids and all this stuff. That didn't work. So the point is, I don't know that I even would have started the same thing. But what I can guarantee you is everything that I've done, I've had some bad luck, I've had some good luck. Everything that I've done was intentional.
Yeah.
You know, and coming to LA was very intentional. Looking for opportunity was intentional. Getting my butt kicked for years to have a shot at even starting a brand was intentional. And starting Young and Reckless the way I did and everything about it was also very intentional. So would I have a clothing brand called Young and Reckless if I wasn't on TV? Probably not. But I can guarantee you I would have had something else that hopefully a room full of people would have still wanted to hear me talk about.
Yeah.
You know?
So getting a little more technical, obviously retail, traditional retail has kind of had its fair share of issues in the last several years.
Yeah.
I assume that you're pivoting to a lot more e-commerce.
Yep.
How are you guys looking at e-commerce? How are you guys looking at content? What are you guys doing to combat that?
Yeah, so for us, like, for me personally, I'll tell you, 2015 to 16 was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And it was brutal personally, and this is a part that I think I try to talk about more because I'm finally like very clear of it. You know, like I don't know if you ever had like real life problems and like you don't want to talk about them until you know you're okay.
Yeah.
You know, and so like I was doing all these podcasts and interviews and stuff, and I never wanted to really talk about it, but now I think it's important to talk about openly because a lot of people deal with similar issues. But it was rough in the sense that we had built for 6 or 7 years at the time with one strategy, right? You fly to buyers, you meet with Macy's, you show them your clothes, you hope they buy it. They say, we'll take it for 10 doors. We'll get, 500 pieces. And you're like, oh my gosh, like we're about to get Macy's. We're gonna make it. And slowly you increase doors and whatever. Meet with PacSun, meet with Tilly's, do the same thing. And then all of a sudden, PacSun filed for bankruptcy in 2015, right? Chapter 11 restructure. Macy's stopped making so many orders, you know, Tilly's, whatever. So all these people now that you built this whole business around a strategy, that strategy goes away.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was a combination of that as well as all the realities that come with that, having to sit across and fire a lot of my good friends I have built over the life of this company for no reason other than the market change. And it just was a really, really tough time for me personally, you know, and I had to do a lot of soul searching through that time of why I'm even doing this, why I even got started on this path, what's the point of any of this, you know what I mean? And very negative and very bad, but the point was, I know why I do this, I'm very hungry about this, I enjoy this every minute, and I just had to kind of feel bad for myself for a little bit and get through it, and then we hired a new team to replace our old team that used to fly around and go to stores and sell the product. Now it's a team that understands Facebook growth and Instagram growth and Google and all that stuff. And we really had to sit down and learn a whole new way of marketing and selling and whatever, and figure out new ways to create content and market. That's kind of why I started the podcast. It's like, okay, I need to start creating some content here, but I don't want to do content like what we used to, like joking around, making skits. What do I really care about? And that's how I came up with the idea for my podcast 2 years ago. Was what I care about is I'm a kid from small town Ohio that thought that none of this stuff was even possible for me. It was out of even my dreams. I didn't go to college. I moved out here. I was scrappy. I paid attention. I listened to people, and I tried and I made some pretty cool things happen. And I wanted to talk to other people who had done that. Right. My show isn't about me. It's about me connecting with other people who have done it, and just try to give valuable information every single week that can hopefully inspire the next person feeling kind of lost or not thinking they deserve it to go do that too. And that's very much in the belief system of Young and Reckless also, and that's been hugely successful for me. So now it's all about growth, understanding Instagram growth, ads, targeting, Facebook, podcast, emerging platforms, all that stuff to just try to build a very strong connection.
So, kind of like our buddy Gary Vee always says is, you know, entrepreneurs are having a moment right now. Obviously, like, you know, following you, and even like we met right after your talk at ComplexCon, and that was very much an entrepreneurial moment. What is Young and Reckless doing anything to really hit this trend? Is what you're doing with the podcast, does that have anything to do with that? Or how are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, I think that naturally the mindset of Young and Reckless is very much like, disregarding the rules that maybe your parents or maybe society tells you to go and build your own life, right? Whatever that means, whether it's being an entrepreneur or traveling or, whatever. So naturally there's a little tie in there. And then short story long, the podcast is 100%, like most of the stories are entrepreneurship stories, right? And so naturally that really connects with people. But I will say I've never sat in a room and had a discussion about how do we target this entrepreneurship thing, because I have mixed feelings about it. I think it's really cool, and I think that it's cool that information is cheaper than ever and more accessible than ever, and it's real information. The information that people are putting on these podcasts, and, obviously you can buy 1 million books and audiobooks now and all this stuff is very, very real information and worth a lot of money. I think that's really cool. But I think it's scary when something becomes a trend. Like when entrepreneurship becomes a trend, it's a little dangerous, And I think the good news is that I think you're going to get more entrepreneurs because more people want to be entrepreneurs. But man, the people that thought they could kind of fake it or didn't understand what the real journey was really like, it's going to be a very rough, brutal awakening. And
I mean, so you're in a room full of budding first time, second time, third time entrepreneurs. What's a couple pieces of advice that you've learned along the way that you want to pass on?
I think that there's a whole lot, and I think that I think that because of Instagram and social media, and everyone kind of looks at themselves as like a personal brand, right? And nobody wants to mess up that personal brand. And everyone is kind of leading to this group that I think is feeling a little extra like almost entitled or like scared to look bad. And I think that is a terrible package of traits if entrepreneurship is your goal. And I think you gotta hunt down important, good, solid information as much as you can, whether that be from mentor types. I know the word mentor is now becoming a buzzword, but podcasts, books, mentors, anything it is, by all means necessary, spend as much time as you can soaking in good, positive information, because there's a lot of negative, right? Being the news, what's going on in politics, what's on Instagram, all that stuff. So soak in good information. Make sure that you're trying. Like, just do something. Do not sit at home and think one day I'm going to do this, and like get to the failing, man. Like, find joy. My friend pointed to me that scene in, I think it's Fight Club, where the guy's just getting the shit kicked out of him and he's laughing. And it's like, how is this psycho? You're getting the crap beat out of you and you're just laughing. That's kind of how you have to be in the world, right? With embarrassment and with nerves and vulnerability and all that stuff. Like, just enjoy the getting roughed up and learning, man. I've found a true passion for just learning, whether it's through failure or embarrassment or reading a book or whatever it is. Just learn and grow and evolve, and it's gonna work out.
So I don't want to ask all the questions. I think we have time for just a few. If anybody would like to grab one. All right, you in the back?
I just had a question. What should we expect in the leader? I saw you had an accessory page where you're going to do shoe products as well as other products.
You said you saw accessory page, you said?
Yeah, it's not about doing that. Are we expecting more?
Yeah, so for us, like, we've really put a big emphasis in the last few years. When we switched to e-com, it was also like, how do we make we were really fortunate in the beginning because with Young and Reckless, you could sell graphic t-shirts which have an incredible margin at an insane quantity over and over and over again, right? Really easy to make, great margin. It was a dream come true. Now we have to be a little bit smarter and a little bit more strategic. So we figured out how to make denim, for $30 at retail most times, and full collections and all this different stuff. That was a big challenge for us the last couple years, and so that's what's really like Like denim has been massively successful for us and we didn't expect that. So now we're going to explore everything. We are going to try shoes. We're going to try a little bit of everything because it's great with e-commerce. You know, most of the time the minimums aren't too big. You can try an order and see what works. And so a lot of that. And then I think the main thing is just connecting better with our customers and truly, like, I think in my opinion, and maybe I could be a little hard on myself here, but like we came from a time when it was like, oh, Young and Reckless was on TV, it was on all these campaigns, all the influencers are wearing it. That's just cool. Like I want to wear what my favorite YouTuber's wearing. Great, super cool. But I would really like to build a community of people that I could get in a room like this and we could really talk and they could really say, oh, that episode of the podcast really affected me, or this book you pointed me to, or this, like, I really want to go to bed at night feeling like I have a large group of young, hungry, ambitious people that I am helping achieve their goals, you know, and that's something I would be very proud of. And I think that if I'm able to do that better, selling product won't be hard, you know, because you'll want to wear that shirt. You'll want to feel, you'll want to support the thing, but yeah, that's the long answer.
Also allowing more engagement too.
Yeah, and just add real value. You know, I feel like a lot of people still do it, and that's great. I'm not saying it's a dead style of marketing, but you used to really be able to, like, you could go pay a celebrity $1 million to wear your stuff, do a billboard campaign all over the country, and everyone thinks that person wears your stuff every day because they don't know any different, and it's just a game of cool and budgets and marketing, right? Now it's really about connection. Like, people aren't stupid. They have access to a lot of information. They have access to a lot of products. Why are they going to put on your shirt or buy your shirt over a Logan Paul merch shirt or any of the million, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can buy a Travis Scott merch shirt. It seems like you were at the concert. That's pretty sick. You know what I mean? Like, I don't blame you for choosing that. So how am I going to make you grab a Young and Reckless shirt instead of a Travis Scott? You know what I mean? That's the goal.
Sarah?
So I've been a longtime fan of yours.
Thank
Actually,
you.
a few of my friends have been on your podcast.
Really?
And just like hearing you speak, it's like you're completely like it's kind of funny that you say like kind of like the perfect answer every time. But no, seriously. But then also at the same time, all of the brands that you build are super disruptive.
Yeah.
So how do you relate those two personalities and like create what you are right now?
Well, this is going to be super corny, and this is going to be the first time I'm going to give you the wrong answer, right? But it's one of those, like, you got to know the rules before you can break them things. You know what I'm saying? So I think that I know the rules. Like, the reason why I'm answering the questions right is because I know what's going on. Like, I know about Glossier. Like, I know what people are doing, and I pay very close attention, and I truly love this stuff, you know, brand building and trying things and whatever. But the only reason why I'm able to kind of do anything that might appear like disruptive or innovative is because I understand what isn't, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think if you really truly understand, like, it's easy, the word disruptive is like another big buzzword, and everyone wants to be disruptive, and it's like, it's easy to run around and say you're disruptive when you don't know what's happening, because every idea you have is disruptive because you don't know what the norm is, right? And so I think in order to create anything quote unquote disruptive, you have to understand what's going on.
So then I guess a follow-up is how do you stay above the curve?
I love, like I said, like, I love learning stuff. Like, I'm constantly like listening to the right podcast, engaging in conversations with my friends, calling people that I know in certain industries for advice or input or whatever, reading articles. Like, I realized a few years ago how much time you can truly spend, like, on Instagram. I'm gonna sound like an old dude right now, but like on Instagram, or like just checking the news, and then like all of a sudden it's been 2 hours, or you're clicking around to see what's on, or you're kind of catching up on that Netflix show your friend said was good. And there's a lot of time to soak in things that really inspire you and educate you, and it doesn't have to be boring and stupid. Like, it doesn't have to be like some crappy book that you're just dying getting through, right? It's like, I'm gonna get smarter. Like, there's a lot of ways to soak in really good information, and then explore. If you hear someone did a deal with some company, we'll find out who that company is and what they're doing and what else they've done. And I just genuinely really enjoy learning and studying the game. Ask me about sports, I am a dummy. You know what I mean? I couldn't tell you one thing, right? But ask me about this stuff, and I'm decent.
All right, guys. Well, I know Brian is probably going to kill us if we hang out for any longer. So, thank you so much. Yeah, I had to throw it to you. I was like, I'm not taking this blame.
Can we do more questions? Can we do like a few more questions, or is he gonna?
Yeah. All right.
Ryan, can we do like a few more questions? Like maybe just 2?
Yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Does anyone else have any?
You stay interested, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I just really enjoy. Yeah.
All right, Arzen.
What was your favorite podcast episode to shoot and why? Out of all the ones that you've shot so far.
I'm gonna be honest. It's my friend Kevion.
He's on today.
I used to work with him.
He is incredible.
Yeah, he's a killer real estate agent.
Yes.
Killer.
So Kevion Sturtevant is his name, and the episode, he was on today's episode as like a catch-up, but the first episode was episode 50. And the reason why is because, you know, this podcast, I sit down every week with somebody who's inspiring, who motivates, you know, who seems interesting to me and seems like they've done something really cool. And I just sit and talk to them. I don't prepare much, I just kind of go for it. I've had some bad ones, but I've luckily had majority good ones. I've had some incredible guests. He was someone I didn't know at all. My friend said, I knew who he was kind of, but didn't really know much about him. My friend said, hey, you should really have him on the show. Trust me, it's worth it. I said, screw it, I'll go for it. Had him on, it was a 3-hour episode. His episode has gotten the most downloads of any episode. And I've had like Kyrie Irving, Paul George, my cousin Rob, all these different people. And there is something about Gary Vee, all these people, there's something about the way he spoke, and it's relatable and it's real and it feels like your homie. It doesn't feel like a motivational dude. And it really resonated with me. It performed incredibly well. And then because it did so well, he said, yo man, I want to like life coach you for a couple months as a thank you. And I was like, I was still in the mindset of like, life coaching, man? Like, oh, that's like the type of shit, I don't know what that is, right? That's scary. And I was like, but you know what, man? Screw it. Ask me anything you want. I'll tell you. Let's go through your process. And it really changed my whole outlook on getting help for things like mindset and perspective. And like, it took me down this crazy other path of like the fact that our mind and mindset is something that we can build like a muscle and we can practice, and things like gratitude practice and all these exercises. It always felt so weird and hippie to me.
Yeah.
And he really in that way changed the way I look at things. And that was, there's been a lot where I've left the episode and been like, whoa, that was cool. But that one like really took me in a different path. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off of the podcast question you touched on earlier, having these big goals about, you know, educating people in the right way and making those real connections and having those brands. And I felt that when I watched the one with Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Like the moment you guys sat down, just like, what's up, man? Like it was just this home.
Yeah.
It just felt right.
Yeah.
And so when you go out and you get guests and you think about the content you're putting out there, like what's your process and how do you see it moving forward? Like long term, what's that goal?
Yeah.
With everything you said, that seems really on brand.
Yep.
I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah, so to me, I realized that the best thing I can do is make people feel like we're friends. And all I'm doing is telling you what I have learned from what I have experienced. I'm not an expert, I'm not a life coach, I'm not a business coach, I'm none of that. And I really want to get better at that moving into the new year, because naturally when you build a platform like a podcast talking about entrepreneurship, or you start doing talks like this, you have the instinct to want to be an expert. Because you feel like, oh shit, like if I don't know the answer to one of these questions, now I'm an idiot, everyone knows my cover's blown, and everyone's gonna just start laughing, right? And you really have to, I really try to fight that. And like when it comes to my podcast guests, I only prep enough so that I don't say something really stupid and like disrespectful, you know? And I remember on Kyrie Irving, I said, and I'm gonna misquote it now, but I said like, oh, why didn't you go to the MBA right out of college or something like that? That seems crazy. And he's like, bro, there's a rule that everyone knows that you have to be 1 year removed. And I was like, oh God. Because I'm like, you know, that got picked up a little bit on, not that quote, thank God, but like the interview from like ESPN and other blogs and stuff. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like you could at least know that, right? So I try to avoid those moments from happening, but I want to be genuinely curious. And it doesn't matter to me if you're, you know, I'd love to interview Jeff Bezos, but you don't have to be Jeff Bezos. You could be anyone that has learned, went through a journey, like truly improved yourself, built a life that you're really proud of, and I'm just intrigued by it naturally. I won't fake it. I won't be a journalist. I won't do any of that stuff because my only goal is this. I've made a lot of contacts and I'm going to continue to make them. But I don't want to just go to coffee with these people at Starbucks and ask them some questions and be selfish. I want to record it. I want to create something. I want to say I'm putting something out to the world and we can all have coffee together at Starbucks with this person and offer something different if you come on my stuff. And so that's my goal. I want by the time, I think some people in this room kind of feel it a little bit. I want by next year you guys to be like, man, like Drama's just my boy who's going through it and just like giving it all he's got, and he learns and he says what he's learned and he corrects, and like that's what you know what I mean? I don't want to be like super motivator dude that you're just like, yeah, he knows the answers to everything.
All right, guys. Well, can we give him a big round of applause? Thanks again so much for sticking around. I think it was a real treat to have you here. I don't know if we should call you Drama or Chris.
Whatever you want.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm on the edge. I'm 32 years old now, so I'm like, it's weird to be saying Drama. Yeah.
Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
This was
All
great.
right.
Thank you, guys. This was great. All of these people are just waiting to see if you fail. They don't care. They literally don't care. So all you do is you start doing it, you face it while you have a small audience or no audience. And like I said, they will grow with you. And as you get over that fear, they'll be there and they'll grow with you. You know, so I would say you can go to all the trainings and all the everything that you want. Just be careful that you're not using trainings as a way to avoid just doing it. And nothing's gonna work like repetition and facing that fear over and over again. Absolutely. They're gonna start getting compliments. Someone's gonna be like, "You look really good on that video." Really? You mean that?
That's
you
all
know?
it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Thank you, man.
Of course, man. Nice to meet you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Last time I did this.